Good morning. Well, it's morning where I'm at. I have no clue what time of day you're having, but anyways, good morning. I know that this week I was supposed to do the 10th and final for this year sketch and chat video, and I wanted to. I actually started to record it, and I got some sketches done, and I wasn't happy with anything. So I decided to scrap it and record this video instead. I hope you don't mind. I was just struggling so much with getting the ideas how I wanted to, and I think that part of that is just I was working too often in that color palette that I had. So I picked that color palette in order to limit myself, and it really helped. I could focus on a lot of other things, and I knew for sure that my color palette was going to look good. And I'm really happy I did it, and I will 100% be going back to that palette and that sketchbook probably in the next month. I would like to say that before the end of January you could see another sketch and chat video, but I'm not going to make that promise. It will most likely be before the end of February. So in the meantime, this is what I am working on. I received this watercolor palette. You'll see it in a minute or so on screen for Christmas this year, and it was such a nice thought. It's really not the best quality watercolors, but I decided to start using it, and I actually really like how they're turning out. I've used them so far on a few different pieces, and because they have such a variety of colors and such bright saturations, and they're laid out in pans where I can see all of the colors I'm working with, it makes my colors a little bit better. And I'm still experimenting and practicing, and I think even in this piece, I'm not totally happy with the final result. I think I went too pink in some of the areas, and I wish I would have brought that back slightly more into the yellow-red area, but I'm happy with this palette, and I'm using it way more than I thought I would be. So that's actually a really good thing. I also finally got my box of cadmium red pencils. I believe you might have seen this already, but definitely in this video I'll talk about it. I absolutely love this color for sketching. I love this color for the start of art. I think it looks really nice as a skin color underneath watercolors, and I highly recommend this pencil. I got a box of 12 because I'm having a hard time finding them, and I don't want to run out again anytime soon. Generally, one of these pencils was lasting me about 6 months to a year, but that was when I was using a bunch of different colors that they offer to sketch with. So now that I'm just using this colored pencil, well, it's not a colored pencil, but this coal erase pencil, it'll probably get used up a lot quicker. So I don't know how long I'm going to be having this box of 12 for. I hope it'll last me 2 to 3 years, but honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a little bit less than that. Especially because now I am drawing more than I used to be, so that's absolutely wonderful, but it means I go through my sketching supplies a little bit faster than I used to. And so now on screen, you can definitely see the watercolor palette that I received. I believe they said they got it from Michaels. I believe it's the Michaels brand, the Artist Loft. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. So yeah, it's not the best quality of watercolors, but I have found using this palette that if you use it on really nice paper, it almost doesn't even matter. So my first few layers I was laying just big chunks of color down to help uniform the piece and bring the colors together. And I think part of that was where I went wrong. It's always helpful to have unified colors, but I think I just unified them too much where they didn't stand out against each other in the very end. And I went over at the very, very end with some wonderful colored pencils that I just bought myself for Christmas. And that helped a lot, but there are just some small things I would change. Mostly, I feel like the hair went too pink. I had other ideas for it, other plans for it, and that didn't happen. But I do have to say, overall, I am very happy with this piece. I've been trying to practice drawing Asian eyes and Asian features, and I feel like I've been failing up until now. This time I was successful, and I'm really happy that I was able to do that. I also think I executed a lot of things well. I love how the pencil looks over top of the watercolor. That's one of my absolute favorite things to do. I think it really helps bring your darks darker and bring in a little bit more color into certain areas. Also, it makes lining things a lot easier because you don't have to worry about getting your watercolors so precise, and you don't have to worry about them bleeding out. The biggest issue I have with putting colored pencils on top of watercolor is you have to make sure that the watercolor and the paper are bone dry. If not, it's not going to work. It will just leave dents into your paper. I use a heat gun to help me dry my painting while I'm working on it. The other day I tried working without it and it was miserable. I highly recommend, if you're wanting to dabble with watercolors, or if you are a watercolorist who doesn't know about this, get a blow dryer or get a heat gun and use it when you're painting. I use it in between all my layers. I try to cut that bit out of my video, but every once in a while you'll see it on screen because I missed it a little bit. It helps. It makes your painting between layer time so much shorter. I was waiting hours the other day when I was hoping for things to dry and they were still not drying. So get yourself a heat gun or use a blow dryer. I'd say if you're a beginning watercolorist, of course you need your paint. I would recommend getting some decent paper. You don't have to get the most expensive paper out there to start with, but get something better than just printer paper. Printer paper will not work for watercolors at all. And then I recommend your third thing that you need, well, of course you need brushes, but after that, get a heat gun. It is so helpful. So back to talking about this palette. Fun fact, it wasn't this palette. It was the Hobby Lobby brand of this palette, but that was my first watercolor palette that I ever bought. And I almost completely used it up. The only thing that kept me from using it up was I started to realize that the paints weren't as good as what other people were using, and I wish that I hadn't given into that. But I was in high school and I wanted to get better at painting, so I ended up buying a nicer watercolor palette next. I think I got the Winsor and Newton or the Cotman pan set next. And then after that, I started dabbling in tube paint, which is pretty much where I've stayed until this palette came back to me. Well, my handmade watercolors were in pan sets, and I found myself recently leaning back into pan watercolors. Like I said, I started with those and I absolutely loved them, but I just really liked how with tube paints you could get easier mixes. You could get darker mixes easier, I felt like. But these pans aren't too bad, and I think one of the issues I was having originally was I didn't know how to mix colors to make them how I wanted them to look. So now that I have a lot more experience, I'm enjoying going back to pans. I like seeing all the colors laid out like that. It's enjoyable. So I think that this palette, I mean, it's not a bad palette, but I think I'm going to be using it up for smaller things like this. And even I've done a little bit bigger of a piece before, but I'm going to use it up, and then I think I'll just fill in the palettes with some tube paint that I have to just, why not use it? It's there and I don't want to waste it, so I might as well fill it back up and reuse it after I use up all of these paints. So now you're seeing me work with the pencils. I got I believe it's called the Highlight and Shading Prismacolor set, and then I got a few singles that I don't actually use for this piece. I only used 2 or 3 pencils from that set. for this one, and it's really nice. It has a lot of colors that I absolutely love, lots of blues and reds, browns that are in the blue-red spectrum, and it has highlight colors, it has some skin tone colors, it has the shadow colors. It's just absolutely nice. I'm so in love with it. I'm really glad I got it. I just decided to fill in some of the missing colors. I felt like it didn't have quite everything that I wanted, so I got maybe 5 to 8 more pencils on the side, and the side ones are mostly Prismacolor, but I got a few that weren't that brand. I can't even tell you this moment what the other brands were, but I'll try to link everything down in the description so that you could check it out for yourself. I'm really happy that I came across using colored pencils on top of watercolor. It's really changed the game for my artwork. I used to only consider myself a watercolor artist, and then I came across I went through lots of years of experimentation and pushing myself, but only in my sketchbook, and that's what helped introduce me into some different mediums. I started using markers at one point. Not the biggest fan of them. I started using gel pens. I still use them every once in a while with some pieces. I used ink washes. I do use ink along with my watercolor. And then finally I came across colored pencils, and it's just really made a huge difference in my work. And I'm so glad that I combined the two. I know a lot of watercolorists use colored pencils and still consider themselves just watercolor artists. But now I really consider myself a mixed media artist, and I'm happy with that title, so nothing to worry about. So this mini original is going to be offered up in my shop. This one will probably be a little bit cheaper than some of the other ones that I was working on. And that is simply because it turned out a little bit simpler than some of them. It took a little bit less time to make than some of the other ones. And I don't quite love it as much as some of the other ones I've made. I really do like it. I don't have a problem with it. I know I keep bashing it. It's just, that's how I grow as an artist, is looking at the mistakes I've made and trying to make them better. But as of right now, I have not put it into my Etsy shop. It will be put up very soon. I'm just waiting for the holidays to kind of settle down still a little bit. Hopefully this week it'll be in. So check back in next week and I'll be able to tell you a little bit more about that, whether or not it's available. I still don't have some of the other mini originals that I've done in my Etsy shop. If you want to check out what those look like, you can check out my Instagram. I have them posted there. Check out my Etsy. Both are linked down below. My Etsy will have them for sale, and I do already have a few up on there, but I am adding more as often as I can. I'm just a busy person and there's only me, so I'll get to it, I promise. I also am working on getting my prints up into my Etsy shop finally. That will be the big goal of January 2020, to offer you guys a few select prints. I'm just working on getting the printer to make the same colors as what I'm seeing on my screen, and unfortunately that's taking me a little bit longer than I wanted to. Well, we are at the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you'll like, comment, and subscribe, and check back in next week to see what else I have. Okay, bye.